So HTML being that framework, that structure that provides the bones to your document, CSS, I always oversimplify it. Actually, I always defer to paint colors, molding and all this kind of thing, and then I leave all like the fancy stuff like home entertainment systems and security systems and all that kind of stuff. I always like hand that off to JavaScript, but CSS can accomplish a lot of that, especially the newest CSS 3. This is not trivial stuff. This is probably, in terms of calling myself a full stack developer, this is likely where I'm the weakest. I would say this is an admission to you, but I'm going to show you what I learned today as part of the demo. But in terms of web development, this is a vitally important ingredient, especially held among those 3 core technologies. So we'll talk a little bit about CSS basics, and this is similar to HTML, where there's going to be a little bit more terminology for you to pick up. We'll talk about selectors. This is how you marry those tags in your HTML document to the styles defined in your CSS document. We'll talk about properties. This is very similar to attributes. Just like attributes, you assign a value. You assign a value to a property in CSS, and this changes the appearance of your page. Okay, so what you've seen so far, as part of the last demo especially, are just what the browser applies, right? So HTML by itself has no style at all. It's what you're seeing on the browser are just those default values. So what we are doing when we are setting CSS properties and applying these properties to certain selectors, we are overriding those defaults. So browsers have their own style. H1, H2 are different sizes. P has margins. These are already things that we've talked about. All that to say, with CSS, we can change these things. We could, for example, make H1, which is the biggest header, we can make it smaller than H2 if we wanted to, right? You can change anything, everything. So when we're doing this is where we first start to see just how many moving parts there are to a web application. So you've seen what we can't do without, just that foundation, that structure in the HTML. When a client, when your browser requests a page, is going to get back that HTML document. That HTML document needs to tell it about any other resources that may be required by the browser. This includes JavaScript, and this also includes CSS. So, as you recall, everything in the head is loaded first. This is the stuff that you don't see on the page. So when we're linking a style sheet to an HTML document, we got to tell that document, we got to specify what styles to apply. And we contain these typically in a separate file. So there we go in their head. Now you guys recall, and I think I've seen some of you as you're going through your coursework, what do these dots mean? Can anyone tell me that? Yeah, it means go up. So if I'm going to look, whoops, oh, I don't have it open. Oh, shoot. Yeah, this is a good enough point that I should probably take a look at it. So this was my prep work for today. That back means go up a directory. So if I'm sitting in this videos directory and I want to go up to the September directory, I use ... That's the name of a directory in Linux. And let me just even emphasize that even more. If I come down to my bash command line and I type in ls, actually I can just do it the short way, ll, you'll see all the contents of my directory. You'll see that README file over here, that index file over here, and you'll see these 2 special ones right here. So this means go back, go up to whatever directory is above this one. What do you suppose this single dot means? Can anyone tell me that? It's your current directory. So watch. So if I want to go back a directory, so currently I'm in home/Ubuntu/workspace. I type in cd change directory ... go one above. So now I type in pwd again. Before I was in home/Ubuntu/workspace. Now I'm in home/Ubuntu. If I want to go back into the workspace directory, cd workspace, now I'm back to where I began, home/Ubuntu/workspace. So the dot is just a directory. If I type in cd dot and do pwd, the current directory. Seems kind of useless, but it's not. It's actually very important. So that you know. Okay, so I'll put this away for now. So when you see these kind of things, it's very helpful to have a basic understanding of how you navigate the file system in Linux. This is also very similar if any of you have ever seen DOS, or if you go on your Windows command prompt. Very old way of doing things that have just been with us for probably about 60 years now. Okay, so here are the basics. When you are applying a style, you have to define a selector. And that selector can be an HTML tag, like the A tag or the P tag, or it can be a class attribute or an ID attribute. So we'll see that in just a second. But you define that selector, you decide which type of tag or which tag of a certain class you want to change. And then you can set different values to the property. So this is very similar to what you were doing with the attributes in HTML, except they look different, really, when you get down to it. So think of this as the attribute. Think of this as the value. We don't use an equal sign. We don't always use quotations, different syntax. So this is, you've seen one technology, now you've seen two. Imagine where it's going to go after this, right? It just keeps changing. The concept, the underlying concept remains the same, but the way we express these ideas, it morphs. So here's a concrete example. So our P selector, we define this in a CSS file, link it to our HTML page. Any P that appears on that page that you put in there is now going to have a margin of 5 pixels. This may be wider, it may be smaller. I'm not really sure what the default is. You close it off with that closing curly brace, and anytime the browser sees a P, it knows to look at that CSS style sheet. And I guess I'm suspecting this is probably decreasing the margins. 5 pixels isn't a lot of space. So which elements do we want to change? That's the selector. There's different ways to specify selectors. We're going to talk about classes and IDs, these attributes. The property is what we're going to want to change. This is like the HTML attribute. The value is that new value. This is what how you quantify that change, how you specify that change. Only select what you want. By tag, some very common tags here. A, P, article. You could also do body, H1, H2, whatever you want. And then we have this idea of nesting tags. So just like you do in HTML, where you start defining elements within elements and you hit the tab key, you can do that with CSS as well. So the syntax that you're seeing, say this is a nav bar, any link contained inside that nav bar is going to have these values applied to their properties. Now, if you're looking at this and wondering what this is all about, this ellipsis, these 3 dots, it's just saying that there's something in there, right? It's not actual CSS code. Another one, article. So you might treat a paragraph in an article differently than you would treat, say, the paragraph on your splash page or your landing page. Only the articles, only the P's, only the paragraphs contained in articles are going to have these styles. And look, you can nest it as many times as you want. Who can tell me what UL and LI are? Lists. Yes. What does the U stand for in this case? Unordered list. So the flip side of that would be the OL, or the ordered list. So you might have a certain list inside your navigation bar, and this is actually very typical. A lot of the menu options that you see at the top of a web page, or say in the drop-down menu on your cell phone, these are often structured as unordered lists. Then we apply CSS styles to take out the bullet point, to give it a different look when you hover the mouse over top of it, and maybe even if you click on it. Right? You can change anything at any event on any element in your page. Okay, we can even get more specific. So this is something that's going to become a little bit more clear as we do the demo. I'm going to show you what the differences between what's coming up here. Some of you may have noticed that we have a class attribute. So now we're back to HTML. This is an anchor tag, just like any other one. We want to style this somehow. We assign it a class. Every single element, every single tag has this class attribute. It also has an ID attribute. So think of a class in terms of like, a broad category. So if you might have a dog, and that's a type of animal, but then it's not your dog named Candy who lives in your house and is 11 years old and all this kind of stuff, right? There's a specific dog. The class is all the dogs. The ID is just that one. So there should only ever be one ID. You can have as many classes as you want. So in this case, it's giving you a very broad overview of what's happening here. But this class, we style that in our CSS style sheets by taking that name, button, and prefixing it with a period. That's what class means in CSS. IDs, on the other hand, are denoted with the pound sign or the hashtag. I think the geometrical term for that is an octothorpe. So, if you specify octothorpe BIOS inside your CSS file, it's expecting there to be one element somewhere on your web page with the ID attribute set to BIOS. Okay, questions about that? So become more clear as you see them. But if you do have any questions, please don't be shy. Okay. So, so one thing I should mention here is that reiterate specificity here. So class, there can be many, many classes. IDs, there also can be many IDs with the same value. This is not good practice. This is just something that you have to do by yourself. Stick to the rule. If you're assigning an ID, just make sure that there's only one. So you're probably only going to want one nav bar on your web application, for example. So you'd probably assign nav ID equals my navigation bar or something like that, right? So there's only one. Whereas you might have many articles on your page. And that's going to take, could be the same class between all those different articles. Okay, so which takes precedence? ID is the top one, right? It's supposed to be unique. So if it sees an ID, the client, the browser knows that the developer was very serious. That developer wants one specific thing to be styled a very specific way. Class is the next most general. Right, so it'll apply all the styles it has in the IDs, and then it will say, okay, well, if there's anything we can fit in here from class, we'll apply those as well. Then nested tags. So A by itself, you see that nesting, right? It's just separated by a single space. So any anchor tag inside of a nav tag is going to get picked up next. Before it looks at all the other A tags on your page, it's going to look at that one in nav and apply those styles. Those styles take precedence over every other anchor tag on your page. And then just the tags by themselves. So this is the lowest degree of specificity. This is, if there aren't any other styles applied before here, we're going to get to this point. We're going to take a look, apply any styles that haven't been overwritten by, say, an ID tag. And then if nothing is defined, then we just use the browser defaults. So it starts at IDs, then classes, nested tags, and you can nest classes as well, and then just the tags all by themselves. Okay, questions about that? Okay, so what can you change? Everything. And this includes moving stuff across the page, changing colors, making stuff spin around. CSS is very powerful, and I don't think that there are many people who can do it very well. Remember how this full stack versus a specialist developer, you could easily, if you were good at CSS, you can write your own ticket, especially if you got an eye for design. The simple fact of the matter is a lot of programmers aren't designers, so the people that know how to do this can't necessarily best express themselves as, say, maybe a print designer or someone who works with paper, for example. So I don't know if anyone's here like that, but yeah, you can do quite well knowing CSS. Some very common things that people want to change. Where did we go? Hey, what happened? I seem to have run out of slides. Oh, there we go. Okay. So these are very popular things, right? Like you make a default web page. The default font is Times New Roman, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just very plain, right? So this is where you can change these things. You can change the color, text decoration. So this would be something like italicizing, bold. What's happening here? What do you suppose what is happening, given what you know about an A tag, and given what you know about the browser defaults? What do you suppose this does to that A tag? I think you're on the right track. So like in the same sense that, you know, there's no style on something if it's bolded or italicized. The A tag by default has an underline. So if you set the text decoration, it overrides that default browser setting, and it takes out that little ugly blue line underneath your links. This one also changes the colors, because you're all familiar, I'm sure, with the default hyperlink. This one looks like I'm guessing it's heavy on the red, so I'm not really sure what color that is, but it's something different than the default blue, which is actually kind of hard on the eyes. And here, again, changing font weight. So I guess that's not really a style. Shoot, if you want to look at the different properties that can be assigned to the text decoration, yeah, I'll leave that to you. Font size, you can set these all sorts of different ways. So this is, I mean, if you've all used, I'm sure you all use like something like Microsoft Word or something like that. You set the font size. They're always measured in pixels. This is no different. We have a whole bunch of different units of measurement. Pixels is just kind of the default old-fashioned way. And if you want to change it, so we know the default is Times New Roman. You can download your own fonts, or you can rely on the browser defaults or whatever you want, but you can change the style of the font as well. So there's no way on earth that you are going to memorize all of this. This is why the terminology becomes so important, because you're going to be working and you're going to say, oh, shoot, how do I remove the line from the A tag? Okay, so now I got to go to Google and I got to say CSS anchor tag styling or something like that, or remove line from anchor tag. In fact, let's even just try it. This is where terminology comes in. Someone just invited me to Beakerhead. What is Beakerhead?
Collaboration of art and science, yeah.
Oh, and they didn't invite me. Jeez. All right. I know, that's why I was saying. That's why I was on my mind. I just had that invitation fly by. Okay, so now I just want to know, right? I say CSS anchor remove underline. So and Google even knows. So you just got to know the words. You just got to know the terminology, because you will never remember this. And especially as a full stack developer, and even as an expert, it's just too much to contain. So lots of different resources. Stack Overflow is probably the one I rely on most personally. This is just a community support, a group of developers, and entirely built by the community. Lots of different options. You'll also see these W3 schools. Some people will give you a hard time for that. I don't know. If it's got the right answer, then don't stress about it. I say W3 is probably a little bit simplistic, but if it gives you the answer quick, then what's the problem, right? Lots of different resources for CSS. Just know that you can change it, right? You got a vision, you can make CSS bring that vision to light. Okay, so coming back here.
How long has CSS been used?
Oh, I want to say like 1993. Let's see. That's a good question. You can watch me searching Wikipedia. That's what you came here for, right? My money's on 1993. Did you see 1996?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I was close.
But that made it project. It was just the first thing.
Well, currently we are on CSS version 3, and CSS simply arose because we have these structured tree-style documents. This is how we describe them, right? These nested boxes in the computer world is usually described as a tree, and you're exploring the leaves on each branch. So boxes or trees, whichever way is better. But even early on in the history of web development, it was realized that the structure and the style should be separate. And that's what CSS was created for. And it's just getting better too. There's other options like they're called syntactically awesome style sheets, or SAS. That makes CSS even better. But if this is something you're interested in, that's the next avenue you should pursue. SAS. That may, in fact, even become CSS4, because these things are always changing. I want to say less, but that doesn't sound right. Yeah, there's a couple, but I think I would say CS or SAS, or sometimes we say SCSS. That's, I'd say, the dominant non-CSS option. But it all boils down to CSS, no matter what you do. That is the core technology. Okay, so back to the slides. We're almost there. Not doing too badly for time just yet. An hour is not a lot of time. So you've already seen this thing. This is in the inspectors. I'm not going to bore you with this too much, but it's a good idea to know what the difference here is between margins and borders and padding. So I think probably the easiest one to figure out is the border. If you set the border in your CSS properties, it's going to draw out a line outlining that box that you created. The padding is the distance from the border to the content inside that tag. So if you make if you give it a lot of padding, you're going to have a big box with outlines out here and all your text really squished inside. The margin, on the other hand, separates that box from everything outside of it. This is just something that you're going to see as you actually do this stuff. So let's not dwell on it too much. But this inspector will let you kind of toy with that, right? So if you're not exactly sure how big the margin should be or the padding should be, you can actually just come in here and double click on any of these fields and just see it change right in front of you on your browser, on your client. This, of course, isn't permanent. You still have to make the changes at Cloud9. But if you just want to work and you want to get hands-on, this allows you to do that. Okay, so borders. We have this BIOS ID, so there's only one. At least there should be only one. And we give it a big outside. We give it a lot of space around the box that we're creating. So we give it a wide margin of 20 pixels. We give it a solid black line for a border. You see why this is black? All the color is set to 0. To make white, it's FF, FF, FF. And yeah, you can set it to any color you want. The border radius gives it rounded edges. So you get a nice 5 pixel curve around the edge. Instead of having sharp corners, gives you a circle. And padding. So that's on the inside of the box. Remember, margin is on the outside of the border. Padding is on the inside.
So is there like a reference file for the web browser to double check all these codes too?
Yes. Shoot.
There's got to be some database where, like,
What's it
wouldn't
called?
wouldn't the application have to refer to somewhere? Or is that all in the...
Well, we've got a lot of standards that guide these things, but you're right. What the observation that you've made? Oh, can I use? That's what I was looking for. So this is just showing you what versions of browsers, and this is very useful if you're in a field where maybe you're working for government or you're working for a large corporation, and the technology tends to change over very slowly. So, for example, I know at the City Hall, even up until recently, they were using like Internet Explorer 7, and this isn't unusual, right? So there's lots of resources like this. You can come down here. Shoot, I almost never use it, so of course I don't really know. Let's say, can I use video? Because there's actually a video tag. This is what I'm going to show you today. Now, this is a feature. This is a tag that was added in HTML5. So looks like it's supported for, say, on the Internet Explorer one, because that's like the big joke. They just kind of cleaned up their act a little bit, but it's still behind. You can only use video in Internet Explorer 11, for example, and all these very other varieties of browsers. Chrome, I would say, is probably the most popular. I know a lot of you are using Safari. Yeah. Who here uses Safari? One person. Who here uses Chrome? Most people use Chrome. Yeah, so that's lots of different things. So if you know how to ask the question, then you can find the answers. So is there one comprehensive list? Yes. It's a W3C standard, I think. Say CSS W3. Now, somewhere here, we're going to have a specification. Here we go. So the W3, just so you know, www. These guys are the gatekeepers for the standards.
So are all these tags built into the code of the HTML browser?
Yes.
Okay.
And so now this is what W3 does, and that's an excellent question. W3 just ensures that we have a common foundation. So anyone can go write their own browser, but if you want to be an HTML browser, you want to be HTTP, you want to actually be a web browser, you have to comply with these standards. And even then, big players, right? I mean, we were looking at can I use, and Microsoft is huge, and yet they still don't fully adhere, right? And that's true of any browser. There's always this move towards compliance, and what am I trying to say here? The standards change all the time, which is why we get new browsers, and they get better and better, typically. Okay. Borders and spacing. We're going to get on to the next slide this time. Yep. Okay. Oh, okay. So now we got to demo the Chrome inspector. So you guys are kind of seeing this. This will all be part of that. So as I mentioned, CSS is not my strong suit. So Lighthouse Labs is always wonderful in that when it comes to these kind of things, I always just do something that I haven't done and I bring it to class, because if I can learn it and I can teach it, then I learn it better. So what I did today was I used a video background. So let me give you a good example. I wanted to replicate this effect here. I'm not a marketer, I'm not a designer, but I look at something and I say, okay, I like that, right? So I wanted to replicate something like this. So it's got a nice background video, bold and dramatic. It looks good on your phone as well, which is very important. And then you just scroll back down, and it gives you the content of the page. So really all I want to do was replicate this big old background video. So now I'm going to set myself up on this side, make sure I'm here. And then I'm going to come to Cloud 9. So I'm going to show you another thing about Git while we're doing this as well. So I'm going to build off of what I did for last day's demo. So what I do, week 1, That was last days, right? I should give it more descriptive stuff here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that the same, but I'm going to make a clone, and I'm going to build off of it. So it's going to be identical to the state I left it in on Monday. So I'll give it a better name. Week 1, day 2. And oops, that's not day 3, day 2. I'll give myself a better, I guess I can't add a description. That's too bad. Oh, I only get this little guy. We'll say video background, so there won't be any confusion next Monday. I don't think you're going to be able to. So, but please do take notes. The only reason I say that is because you don't have any videos to share, unless you guys can find a video. All right. Maybe we'll, yeah, okay. Well, if you've done this before, you might still be able to find opportunity to do this. I know Google video.google. I'm not sure if you can download from here though. Minecraft. My kids love Minecraft. It's like my dad would always rag on me for watching cartoons. It's like I see my kids watching other people play Minecraft. It drives me out of my mind. But these people are professional video game programmers with thousands of followers, or not programmers, players, video game players. Yeah, these all look like YouTube, so yeah, you won't be able to follow along too well, but you'll get a lot of this in the coursework as well. Okay, so where did my for some reason it crashed. That's never good. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to add or show you a brand new tag, and it is called video. This is an addition to HTML5. And you can set a whole bunch of different attributes, different options. Right now, I'm just going to leave it like this, and I'm going to give it a source. So this is kind of like, sort of like the image, I guess. You're just telling it where to find the file. Some point, I'm going to have to find a good way to organize this thing. So what I'm going to do now is just upload a video. And this was me working last night. Whoops. New folder. So I'm just going to call it videos. And I had the foresight to save this to my laptop before I left today. And I made 4 different versions. I'll get to that in just a second. There we are. So it's going to take a few minutes. So I'm going to assume that we have some basic knowledge of different video files. So the ones that you're probably definitely familiar with are AVI files, very common. MP4s, MPEGs. Again, anyone ever heard of OGG? OGG Vorbis? Another video one. I think they're superior to, in terms of audio, I think they're superior to MP3s, but it's just another standard with which to encode video. And then we got this web movie. In order of size, the AVI is huge. It's about 9 megabytes. Now you got to think in terms of your user when you're doing this kind of stuff. If your user is going to be using a cell phone, he might not appreciate downloading 9 megabytes over Wi-Fi or over the cell phone network. So you make smaller ones as well. MP4, this one's not much smaller. If you can see it, it says 8.65 megabytes. Naturally, as the size goes down, the quality goes down. So this says 741 kilobytes, getting to be very, very small and much more appropriate for, say, a mobile application. And then we have the WebM, which is the smallest of all. And I'll play these each so that you can see the differences in quality. But now I actually have some videos. So now this video tag is a little bit different than what you're used to. So inside of this one, I'm just going to set these different sources. If I start the path, so that, remember we were talking about the dot dot and the other dot dot and like the directory names. If I set this slash, this is the root directory for the server. So I'm running Apache, it's always going to look down here for this index.html, just so you see. This is on the same level as September w2d1 demo. So from videos, I type in, this was my failed experiment, although I'm still pretty proud of it, heat exchange. And I'll do the small one first. WebM. Very small file. This is one of those tags that doesn't need a closing tag. There's no closing source. And you're going to see me do this from time to time where I put a slash in there just because, as I said last time, I'm kind of set in my ways. So at this point, I should be able to actually see this thing. So this is much different than from what I was doing with YouTube the other day. If I go to here, because YouTube previously was serving up the video. Now I've actually got the video on Cloud9 serving up from my website. Okay, so there is a video in there, believe it or not. Oh, there it is. But it's all out of skew, right? So a lot of this stuff we can set with the attributes, but we can also do this with CSS. So first thing I'm going to do is make it so that it's easy for me to organize my file. Now, when you started your Finstagram project, a lot of this stuff was organized for you. But you'll see if you get into this recreationally or as a new profession or anything like this, you're going to see kind of similar ways of organizing. So typically, styles is what I'm looking for. Typically, you store all your CSS files in something called CSS or styles or something like that, and create a new file. So this should all be review. It doesn't really matter what you call it. I think, by convention with Lighthouse Labs, I think we usually name it app.css. So these are all the styles, and you can have as many of these as you want. If you want to use one of these, you have to tell HTML to load it alongside the browser request, because the client, the browser, is going to request your page. It wants to learn about rocket stoves or something. It needs to know what file to load to set those styles. So this all happens up in the head. So I'm hoping, having gone through these slides, this will be just kind of refreshing your memory as to what we were talking about. So we use this link tag. This is another one of those weird tags that doesn't require a close. I'm not sure what rel stands for. Probably relationship. How is this file related to this page? Tell it to type. And this is the same way over and over and over again. This is one of those things you're going to be finding yourself looking up on Google all the time. How do I link to my CSS file? Some of these attributes you might be familiar with. So I'm looking inside the styles directory for a file called app.css. .css, just like that. So now I haven't really done anything, but I want to make sure that I haven't broken anything. Far more important, right? So this is why I say always go slow. And if you're really, really concerned, this is also a good time to make a commit, assuming it works, of course. So we come to the rocket stove. Let's just make sure nothing crashes. So it looks like it's loading the page. I don't know why the video is not playing. That kind of sucks, but we'll get to that. There we go. So now there's two ways to find out if there's an error. You can look at your server output. Nothing unusual. It's not reporting anything, so I know that there's no problems there. Another dead giveaway is the inspector. So if something's not working, you made some small change, you refresh your page, you're not quite sure, come to this console. As you can tell here, no big deal. Everything's working. So let's actually make some new changes to the style. What should I style first? Actually, let's get this video running first. That would be much better. Okay, so if you look up the specs on video, you're going to see a whole bunch of attributes that are going to look a little bit weird at first. So remember how our attributes are always assigned values. Sometimes you'll see something like this. So I've got a loop attribute, and just by putting it there, it gets assigned a true value. This would be the same as doing this. I don't need to do that though. And it kind of looks goofy if you do. So I'm going to say just loop. As soon as this page loads up, play the video, make sure the sound is turned off. If you're wondering where I'm getting this stuff, just do a search. Video attributes, or HTML video attributes. Autoplay. And if I'm waiting for it to load, actually I won't do that, but you can have like a background image to load up while you're waiting for your video to load if it's a really big file, for example. But that would require me to download another image, so let's just skip over that for now. Okay, so at this point I should be able to see my video. Refresh. Oh, there it goes. So there's my rocket stove. This was my experiment last night. I'm sad to say that it failed, but I'm still pretty happy that I discovered it failed. I also watched this Netflix show about Russian cosmonauts, and the whole Russian space program was them just shooting up rockets until they found one that didn't explode. It was just trial and error. It was a beautiful thing. So if you have Netflix, you'll understand my approach to designing rocket stoves. All right. So I need to make this a background. I want to put a little bit of information. I want to have like that dramatic splash effect. But the first thing I'm missing here, I mean, this thing is like all off the page, right? It's way too big. So let's change this around. Let's give it a class. First of all, I'll assign that here. So this is where that, that broad class, and I'm actually only going to have one, but I'm going to try to, maybe I should make that an ID. Yeah, because I only have one. We'll say ID equals video background. Give it something descriptive. Or if you want to be, kind of terse, just video BG is acceptable. Just something that makes sense to you. So then I come over. Oh, sorry, the question.
That's just for your own knowledge, or is that then you're going to?
That is
the HTML video BG.
This is my creation. There is no video dash BG. That's just something I call it.
Identifying the ID for.
Exactly. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just recommending making something descriptive. So now I want to change the appearance of this one particular thing. I'm using an ID. So I enter that hashtag and I say video BG. Open curly brace, closing curly brace. Now everything inside of here, anything I change is going to be applied to that video. So now hopefully I can figure out how to make it small. Okay, so let's say, sure, I got to refer to my notes. This was all brand new stuff to me this morning. So okay, so if I change the width, so now this is referring to, the width of the containing box. Now, right now, it's got to be like, it's huge, right? So the video is pretty big. If I just set it to 100%, I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed here. This should constrain it to the size of the window. All right, let's see though. Yes, it did. So all of a sudden it changes. Okay, so now I'm not sure what I want to do here just yet. You know, just on the fly, I'll set the height to 100% just to see what happens. Let's see if it fills up the whole page. Kinda. I'm not sure what happened there, actually. It looks like I missed some of it up here. Okay, well, we'll leave it like that for now. So we set it to height 1%. You know what? Let's try auto. So now this is leaving it to the browser to determine how high this thing should be. So it's not necessarily going to fill it up, but it's not going to warp it in any way, right? It's not going to like try to change it from a portrait to landscape kind of orientation and you know, squish it all down. So let's just see what that does. Hopefully this, yeah, the bar goes away. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. So now, if I'm doing anything to this, because what I really want to do is I just want to like take this tag and put it on top of that video, you know, change the color, you know, make a dramatic splash when someone comes to my site. So what I need to do is move it up here to start. I'm going to show you what happens when I start messing around with these settings. So this header is going to come to the top, but I want it to come down. So currently, if I do an inspect on this video, it should tell me that it is in a relative display mode. Or is it going to tell me anything? Video. Oh, it's not telling me. It's probably just by the default. Okay. So I want to change this to an absolute. So right now it is position relative. That's what you're seeing now. I want to just make it so that it doesn't move. I set it there and it doesn't go anywhere. Absolute positioning. So hopefully if I work this right. Nope, didn't work. Okay. Position absolute. Oh, I think I might have to set how far it is from the top. Sorry, bear with me. I'm doing a little bit of experimenting here. 0. So if I say it's 0 distance from the top, hopefully it'll overwrite. Yeah, there it went. So it went right up. So it's an absolute position. And what I'd forgotten to do there was actually tell it where to go. Absolutely. So, you know, it's starting to kind of look pretty good. I covered up my title screen. That kind of sucks. But I'm seeing some things that are bothering me. Like these bars around the side. Right? I want to get rid of this. Any guesses as to what property I need to change to get rid of this white strip on the side? Yes, but on what? Well, let's measure the margins as they stand. Whoops. Look at that. You can save the video. That's kind of neat. All right, so I got to get my inspector open. There we are. And I want to check the margins on my video. So I can look at this thing. Oh, yeah. Looks like it's got a margin of 8. So if I change that to 0, what happens? Oh, nothing. Oh, no, there it is. Okay. So it's not saved though, remember? See how I showed you that you can make these manual changes. Let's just change the left padding just for fun. Let's change it to something pretty big, 50 pixels. Okay, and so now I can kind of see the stuff underneath there, right? That's the padding. What I just changed was the margin. But when I make these changes, these aren't saved to Cloud9, right? When I press refresh, it's just going to go back to the way it was. So if I come back to here, this is where I make those changes. So I will say, whoops, what's going on here? All right, margin. I think that video is slowing down my little computer here. All right, let's try that. Refresh. Hopefully that strip will disappear. No. There must be some mistake. Video. Oh, is that? No, that's position. Look at that. Okay, I was leading you down like this very deceptive path. It's actually in body, right? I was going to set the margin. You're going to find out it didn't work. Punchline didn't quite work out so well, but you see it right there. That's the 8. All right. So I failed in tricking you. I kind of just tricked myself. But what I need to do is set the margin on the body, the big container that you actually see. This is no different. And I can put it anywhere in this file. Body. And margin. Okay, that should fix it. There it goes. Okay, so joke's on me. All right. Next, what do we got now? Looks pretty good. Fills the whole screen, you know, aside from that bar over there. We still can't see this, though. That's kind of a problem. So what can we do to put this in the background and put stuff over top of it? The first thing I should do, though, because no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to see this content. Remember where I put it? I put it right up at the top of the page, and it's colored black. So the black on the black background is going to be very difficult to see. I can change that here. So I'm going to do just H1. And if I like, I could nest it. I'm not going to do that right now. It doesn't really matter the position you put these in, just to demonstrate. But I'm going to change the color to white. You can do this a couple ways. You can use that hex code. But some common colors just have their ordinary names applied to them. So if you're curious, you can actually just type in white or black, and there's yellow, dark orange, all sorts of different colors. All right, so that takes care of that. But now somehow we've got to push this thing back so that we can see what's what's currently underneath it, and bring it to the stuff that's underneath it, bring it to the foreground. So the easiest way would be to set the Z index. What does this mean? What's Z? In terms of Cartesian coordinates, if you're talking about X and Y, so we're talking about pixels, and we're talking about width and height, the Z is the depth, the Z coordinate. So I can push this thing down, or I can raise everything up. All I'm going to do is push it down one level, -1. So everything's going to be at 0, and if I did everything right, you're going to see that that title screen. Or sorry, that title tag. There it is. Everyone wants a rocket stove. So that's what it took to do that. One thing I haven't looked at, now I've got troubles. Now it's just writing over everything, right? That's not any good. How am I going to solve this? Any sort of guesses? What would you do as novice programmers? Change the which one? Yeah, well, that's what we did. Yeah, we changed the Z levels. But we need a box, right? We need a box to kind of just change its own height and not necessarily contain the image, but to give us enough space to push all this stuff down to the bottom of the page.
And because we put the body to have no side, all the text is just running on the side now too, or is that just
Yes, exactly. Yes.
if it's in the body too?
That's because we set the margins. You're absolutely right. So you know what, and this kind of lends itself to this point that I'm chasing. We want to set that box, and we want to have some special constraints. We want it to behave in a certain way. So what I'm going to do is come to my index, and I'm just going to create a box around all this stuff. Let's hope I don't mess this up. What's going on here? Okay, so I'm going to say div. I guess I should use ID because there's only going to be one. There should only be one. I'll say landing page or something like that. So this is what I intend everyone to see when they come to my website. Very first thing. So get rid of that div. I put it all the way down here below the video. So I've wrapped everything in there. And I want to make sure that I indent so that it's easier to read. Because like, look at it right now. You can't really tell at a glance what's happening. I press enter and all of a sudden, okay, well, there's a box here and there's another box inside that box. A couple of them, in fact. So probably nothing's happened yet because I haven't actually set any styles. But what you suggested was really good. Like, let's move this stuff away from the edge because it's really crowded. It looks kind of goofy. All right, so I'll take that and I'll come to my app, CSS, and I will say, whoops, remember it's an ID, so I use the hash. If it was a class, whoops, landing. It's funny how difficult it is to type standing up. And then we can set some margins, right? Maybe we want margins, maybe we want padding. Let's just see. So I'm going to introduce you to a different kind of measurement. So what you've seen so far are measured in pixels, denoted with that px unit. This is going to push it over just 10 pixels. It's going to be really small, so just observe. Oh, it pushed everything over. That's not good either. So I need a different box. I need a box within a box within a box. Just crazy stuff, right? So now I come back to here. Okay, so I want this to remain the same. I want something to contain all this stuff, but I want a special box around this H1. Or maybe I should just assign it a class. Fastest and easiest. Let's do that. ID class, we'll say landing. I think that should do it. If I change this one over here, so I'm going to take that out entirely and change it to a class. See what I did there? I had a hashtag, and now I changed it with a period because I'm not using an ID anymore. I'm specifying a class.
So on the HTML, you don't put the dot in the landing, but on the CSS, you do the dot.
Yeah, wild, right? Yeah, exactly. In the CSS, that is just how we specify selectors. Yeah, all sorts of different stuff. You're marrying so many different things together. It looks a little better, right? So this one's to the left. I still got this problem here. Everything's kind of just overlapping my video. I want this to be the only thing on the page. Now, how did I do this before? All right. The way I did this before, so I'm relying heavily on my notes here, is I wrapped the video in its own container. You know what? Maybe I can even just do this. I say ID, and I can add another class. I'm kind of treading into dangerous waters here because this is not the tried and true method, but I think that this will work. So I will say, what should I call it? I'll call it, I don't know, I'll call it wallpaper. So now I have both an ID and a class, and I can assign this wallpaper class to anything. So now if I did this right, I should be able to say wallpaper, dot wallpaper, because it's a class. And put the position at absolute. So it doesn't move when something comes after it. Oh, shoot. I think I'm just kind of redoing what I've done already. Let's try that. Actually, I'm not too confident in that. Oh, came pretty close. No, didn't work. Okay, something else. Have to do something else. Sorry, let me refer to my notes here. I don't want to go lead you too astray. And, oh, that's how I did it. Okay, height 100%. Okay, so this was kind of silly of me because I actually did this before. Let's see. So my first instinct was to take this thing out. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, we'll call this ID equals promo content. So this is apart from what I've done here. And I'm going to put everything in promo content that I want to display on top of that video. So now, if I say promo content, and I'll set that height to 100%. Let's hope this works. So that should fill up whatever screen space is available and hopefully push that video and the rest of the content to the bottom. Did it work? It did. Look at that. So the video should appear here, right? So not bad, right? I've got so much else to show you. Do you guys want to get to work, or do you want to just keep me watching here? What's the preference?
Keep watching. We can work it on.
All right, let's do a vote. Keep watching. Work at home? No, those weren't the same options. Those are the exact same options. You didn't have a choice. Just like those Russian cosmonauts. Okay, so let's do a couple things here. One thing I've kind of neglected to mention is that when we're doing this stuff, we always develop for the mobile phone first, right? You want to make it look good on the phone, and everything else kind of comes after that. So we haven't looked. What does this look like on a cell phone? Might not look as nice as this. Okay, so this is an iPhone 5. Actually, that's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Let's try it on my Nexus. I used to have a Nexus 5. Oh, that actually looks pretty good. We can't stretch it too far, right? It's funny because when I was working on this at home earlier today, it kind of stayed the same size and you didn't get to see the flame, but this actually works out a lot nicer. So I've unwittingly made some improvements. Oh, one thing I did notice, look at all this stuff. I got all that dead space at the bottom. So it's a good thing I looked, right? It might be a good idea, just because, this is some introductory information about rocket stoves. Why not use this dead space, right? So now if I flip it around, actually, this is a good thing to check, right? So do the landscape, still looks pretty good. And we get the benefit that we don't have all that weird dead space. But in portrait mode, okay, yeah, that just looks goofy, right? So let's figure out a way to move all this stuff up. Now, right off the bat, the really naive way to do, which is what I'm going to do because I don't really know any better at this point. You just kind of got to try this stuff and go slow. I'm going to take all this introductory information about rocket stoves and then put it in my promo content. Okay, so this is going to, it's definitely going to reorder the page, and I think I'm going to get pretty close to where I want to be with just some minor reorganization. Is it still going? Oh, wait, is it because it's black? Oh yeah, so it was there. So this is where it is. So I've got some things to fix. I got to change this around. I think I can recycle this without creating another class or ID. So I changed everything in landing to white, as I recall. So if I look at, landing has a margin of 10, which is actually beneficial. That's good. Oh, and the H1 was white. Okay, so you know what? I think we can just recycle this. I'll take this one down, and I'll put it in anything in the landing class now is going to be colored white. So this is not any longer just limited to that one H1 tag. Any class that has landing will now have the white text color. Still not ready to go yet. Watch what happens. So if I refresh, it's going to be the same. Yeah, nothing changed. I need to tell it here to apply those styles. You know, there's other efficient ways to do this, but this is now going to make the change. Like, why not just have landing up here in promo content and just apply it to everything, right? But, you know, you can refactor. That's what we call refactoring. So when you see not an error, but a way to improve and clean up the code, you refactor. So we can save that for another time. But I press refresh. Okay, not bad. Still kind of hard to read, you know, and it's going to get even harder to read when you look at it on a cell phone. And then we got a different problem. All our text is white. We got a couple of options here. What can we do?
Change background.
You can change the background of the video. Absolutely. This is part of the background. The other option would be to change the text color when you're looking at a cell phone, which is something you can do. That's something that CSS allows you to do. Will allow you to determine if the phone is in portrait mode or landscape mode. We'll be able to figure out the size of the device, the window, the displayable area. But I like your idea. I think we should just change this to black so that we can see the white text. Come back to here. So what do I need? I need it on video. And I assigned it video BG, so I can add that, I hope. Let's try it. I just had a sudden thought that this, for a reason why this might not work. But let's try it. Let's say background. This is where Cloud9 gets kind of handy sometimes. Might save you looking it up on Google because it gives you suggestions as you type. So I'm going to say background color. And I can do this if I like, or I can type in the hexadecimal, whichever you prefer. Press refresh, and hopefully, that's kind of what I thought might have happened. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's take a shortcut with the inspector. So what am I looking at here? I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the landing page. Oh, so I applied it to the wrong thing, right? So look at how the boxes are arranged. This is how you debug. Here's my video. It got all shrunk down to here. It gives you the position in that XY space as to where it's located. But if I look up here, oh, here's promo content. I could apply it to here, or I could apply it to the landing page ID. I think it's better applied to the landing page ID, but who knows? It's only one thing we can do to find out. So let's create the background color. Where did I put my landing page? Oh, I don't even have it anymore. Did I just take that out? Okay, well, I'll just put it back in. Landing page. Background color black. All right. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Oh, what do you think happened here? Any guesses? Something to do with the Z index. Everything just got covered up. So, okay. You're starting to regret like watching me do this now, I'm sure. That was kind of the fear in the back of my head here. So you start messing around with the Z index, then it's like, okay, what are you going to do? The weird thing is, though, that you can actually see it, right? You can see the text, and you can see a little bit of the rocket stove. I wonder, something got messed up. So let's take that out. So this is why you make those very small changes. Take that out, and maybe we can fix it. Okay, that looks all right. It's a little small. We can always fix that, though. So we need to see our cell phone. Okay, no, that's still. Oh, okay, I see. Okay, that's interesting. Um, hmm. Why did it do that? That's kind of funny. So you watch me staring at the screen all puzzled and mesmerized by the flame. That is a weird one. Shoot. Okay, so let's do this. Video, what else can we apply that background to? We did promo content. But if we do that, then it's going to get covered. There's the landing.
I could apply the black background after that box, after that div.
Well, that's what I'm trying. But like the thing is with this, notice how big this landing page is, right? It fills the entire screen. Then this,
No, but it ends before you have the other video.
yeah. But now, see, here's the difficulty. And again, these are really good questions. But the video is after that, right?
Not that video, the next one. So,
This one here.
right.
Do you know what we can do instead? Let's try this. I don't want to go too nuts with the nesting here, but we can take this landing page. We can color that black. Put that back. So now this totally ruins everything. Right? Yep. Okay. But then we can put the landing page back on the Z axis. So this is getting awfully hacky, but is that going to work? Let's say a Z index -2, I guess. Let's try it. You shouldn't really monkey around with this stuff too much, but when you start doing fancy things like this, then it kind of becomes necessary sometimes. No, that didn't work. Video is there. Promo content, ID. Oh, all right. You know what? Just because this is taking a long time, I'm going to show you plan B. And that was to change the text when the screen is in portrait mode. So I'm just going to copy and paste just to keep things moving along here, because we're getting deep into your time. I'll get rid of this, plug this in. Thanks for bearing with me, though. This was actually a really educational thing for me this morning. So I hope you get something out of this and me improving my CSS skills. So we got our promo slug. Let's see. Class landing. So we did. All right, so what I've done here is I've just created a special little box for what we're doing. I'll say color is black, and I'll say this one gets pushed to the very bottom of the screen. Position absolute. So 50 pixels from the bottom. Font size. We'll make it a little bit bigger for the cell phone. All right. Uh-oh. So I already got that one. Okay, let's do that. Okay, hopefully this works. Otherwise, it's probably time to get moving on this. All right, that sucks. I will work on this after I do your synopsis, and hopefully I'll have something like a little bit more satisfactory to show you. If you are curious, I mean, there's nothing to stop you from going to Cloud9 and just looking up my my projects, and you can look at them, clone them yourself, and just use that as a resource. So we actually have someone new to introduce to you. Andrew, tell us about yourself, share a quirky fact, all the rest.
Hey guys, my name's Andrew. I